Hey there, Elder Scrolls Legends fans. I am the DeadBrokeNerd, and what I'm going to do here is give you guys my thoughts on the balance changes that were previewed yesterday. They're going to be patched in today, and I'm going to try to keep this video pretty short, 5 to 10 minutes max. So we're just going to jump right in, and starting off with Tullius's Conscription. So, okay, this card has been seeing ridiculous amounts of play to the point at which the winner of the last warp meta ran 3 different classes, each with Tullius's Conscription as its sort of win condition. It clearly needed changes. The community was sort of clamoring for changes to this card. They increased its max magicka from 11 to 12, or excuse me, its magicka cost from 11 to 12. It still does the same thing. I don't like this change. I don't think it does enough. I think this is the easy way out. I think this change is, I'm sorry, but lazy. So they're saying they like what Conscription's doing. Well, guess what? The community doesn't like what Conscription's doing. It boxes out attrition-based decks, which I like personally. And I think it also, unfortunately, boxes out a lot of other sort of late game finishers that just aren't quite as explosive as this. Increasing it does damage the card to some decks, but not. It doesn't damage the biggest offender of Tullius's Conscription, which is Telvanni. Telvanni Conscription being widely considered one of, if not the best deck in the game, and has been for several months. And this does nothing to it. Why? Because Telvanni has access to ramp. So you're already getting additional max magicka. You're sort of getting to turn 11 earlier. Now it's just one. It's delaying one turn, but it's not as bad because Telvanni gets to ramp already. We saw the same thing happen when they nerfed Solitaire and bumped it from 2 cost up to 3 cost. Well, the biggest offender was Ramp Scout, and they didn't give a crap. They're like, all right, well, we'll just, we'll have to be a little more careful with our magicka, but we've got so much of it, usually it doesn't matter. Same thing here. It does harm other Conscription builds, but this one is... I don't like this. I think it's lazy, and I doubt that it will see a change. Some people are comparing the nerf to Rage and how Rage sort of fell off for a while after being bumped by 1 magicka. The difference between this and Rage is that Rage is a 2-card combo or requires you to already have a board state up, whereas Solitaire and Tullius's Conscription, besides being featured heavily in decks with ramp, are like solo cards. Like you don't need a prerequisite to get to play them or get the value out of them. So I don't like this. I think that their logic is flawed here. And this isn't actually going to help the problem with Telvanni Conscription. Okay, Genius Pathmage. Cost change from 6 to 7. Genius Pathmage is one of the cards that's in this Nixox combo. I think I like that they didn't go overboard. They just bumped it up, so it's a little bit harder to, sort of spam out the copies of the dude. It sort of slows down the turns a little bit. I don't hate Nixox combo. I do think it should be harder to pull off, but I also don't want combo decks, and I don't want the trend set of combo decks just being nerfed into oblivion just because they're a powerful combo. And I mean, I honestly, where Nixox can have some huge inconsistencies already, I don't mind this being sort of on the slighter, the smaller end of the nerf. I think Nixox combo is cool, and I wouldn't want it to go away for forever. I just want it to be less consistent. I think they've done that. I'm good with this change. Now, Goblin Skulk. This one's really tough for me because Goblin Skulk is one of my favorite cards, and it got nerfed. Here's the thing. They nerfed Goblin Skulk to inadvertently nerf Cruel Firebloom. They should have just nerfed Cruel Firebloom. I talked about that in my video where I was kind of forecasting what might be nerfed, what I might like to see buffed. And I said Cruel Firebloom. I think Cruel Firebloom deserves to be nerfed. I think it's too much for the low cost of 0 magicka. But the other half of the coin was that Goblin Skulk can pull it. So they changed Goblin Skulk instead. This hurts a lot of decks that aren't really abusing Cruel Firebloom and instead are trying to utilize the tutor effects to pull things like curses, or maybe even for one of my favorite decks, a movement monk deck where I want to pull Moving Shadows to zip across lanes. There's a lot of zero costs that aren't causing problems, that aren't that big of a deal, and sort of cutting off the main sort of resource slash tutor effect and bumping it up to 3. Bumping it up to a 3 cost and slowing down that train is going to hurt a lot of decks that aren't Telvanni conscription, and that's Telvanni once again the biggest offender when it comes to Cruel Firebloom. So that's disappointing. Here's the other thing though. Goblin Skulk has been a staple card and a really powerful, potent card since Core Set. So I'm a little surprised Goblin Skulk hasn't been nerfed yet, or at least not, bumped up to 3 cost. This card's really, really strong. I think it's still good, but now it's not an auto-include. And now, like, the Goblin Skulk Curse package and pretty much every other aggressive green deck is going to be much less appealing. I think it will increase deck building choices, and ultimately, this card's really strong, so I guess I'm okay with it. Ash Berserker. Yeah, I'm really disappointed in this nerf. I think even more so really than Conscription, because Ash Berserker is one of the things that allows these red decks to sort of play up to the powerhouse that is Telvanni Conscription, because it allows them to draw the cards, especially draw cards right at the end of the turn, so right away get a card to replace itself, to make up for the fact that Telvanni Conscription cycles a ton and is able to clear things really efficiently. By making this 3 attack, it becomes significantly harder to activate Ash Berserker's effect. 6th House Amulet doesn't do it, or Clan Captain doesn't do it anymore, 5th Legion Trainer doesn't do it anymore. Like, there's so many things that people relied on to give just a casual +1 to Ash Berserker when he was 4 to bump him up, and now at 3 that doesn't happen. This is going to really hurt aggressive or mid-range red decks, and in an environment where Telvanni Conscription didn't get worse, but instead all the other Conscription decks get worse, or at least most of them, because Telvanni ramps, and like I established before, it's not a huge deal for them. This is a problem for me, gotta be honest. I think this is going to hurt the environment more than it's going to help, and it certainly renders a card from very, very good and playable to pretty darn not great. So I'm sure it'll still see scattered play, but this is huge, and maybe they could have gone up on the back end to compensate, like switch the stats a little bit. 3/3 for 4, that's tough, especially when it becomes harder to activate its ability. Okay. So we'll go into the buffs now. There were 3 buffs. I think it's really interesting. I was really hoping for my precious High Hrothgar to get indestructible tag. I'm still hoping for it. It won't happen, I guess. But they ended up doing something really cool, I felt like, which was buffing a theme. So they buffed Exalt. So they took Temple Patriarch, which has a really cool ability to trigger the Exalt of each friendly creature, and bumped it down to 6 with the same stat line. This becomes a pretty intriguing choice. And then they also did the same thing for Enamor's Keeper, which was they brought the Exalt cost down to 4 so that you can get that Heirloom Greatsword, which, by the way, that's the card that when it gets discarded, it comes back to your hand so you can keep playing it. So he would be a 9/3 for 7, but with the ability to return the Greatsword. This guy's still not great in my mind, but yeah. But then the Temple Conjurer also got the Exalt reduced, so now this is effectively a combined stat distribution of 7/5 for 5, so that goes right up there with that Torval Extortionist, which is also a 7/5 for 5. Of course, this is spread out, and of course, it's susceptible to Ice Storm, but still, I think this card now definitely, there's an argument to give this card a try, and in combination with, like, Temple Patriarch to play this and resummon, another Flame Atronach, which, by the way, this doesn't require the cards to already have been exalted, so you can play this down on turn 2, play this down turn 3, and then when it gets around, if any of them are left, Temple Patriarch comes in and triggers the summon effects for them, even if you just brought them in for their base cost. I think this is really cool that they're sort of buffing a theme as a unit, I think it's a good policy. I would love, love, love to see even more of this sort of in the future of buffing themes that already exist. So those are my thoughts on the Elder Scrolls Legends balance changes. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Feel free to like and subscribe. I never say that on the end of the YouTube video, so we're doing it this time. I remembered. And until next time, guys, take it easy. Yeah, have fun with these new changes.